on even. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's looking way more promising.
Mucho rojo.
Listen, you can't be grunting in the show.
It's called the Catholic main show, not the Catholic wine show.
Indeed.
I have to tell Leo, like, oh, listen, I can't understand whiny voice.
I use that too.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, let's do it.
I'm ready.
Here's to good friends.
Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers. That's sort of an oaky afterbirth.
What was that?
She did tell me to get a beer and some cheese fries over at Eskimo Joe's.
That's very nice, lovely. I only hope you feel this way when I'm done. Because I could destroy this night in 2 seconds.
Why is that funny?
Well, I think it's a bit funny to be trying to define nothing.
Smooth as a bourbon on a summer day. Strong as a peated scotch in the winter night. This is a fair warning. The Catholic Man Show is about to begin.
Slap some bacon on a biscuit and let's go. We're burning daylight.
The band's back together. Everybody is here for the Catholic Man Show. Welcome, one and all. I'm Adam Minahan with David Niles. We have Juan Posada back on the buttons, clicking away. We have Jim over here guarding the door.
And when you say he's on the buttons,
he's not.
You don't mean that he's literally on them.
Correct.
Gotcha.
I think we've established that in multiple episodes.
Right, but now that everyone's back, for the sake of tradition, I wanted to
to bring it back,
reestablish it.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
So we just got back from Massachusetts this week.
Yeah, we were in Boston.
No, Worcester.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. But
Yeah.
it was the Boston area.
Right. Get some coffee in Boston.
Yeah.
As we traveled to Worcester.
Yeah, it's Worcester. That's not how it's spelled.
Mm-mm.
This is a lot like Scotch, where the spelling of the thing and the pronunciation of the thing are disassociated, and that's okay.
Yeah. But it was a phenomenal conference. We had a great time.
It was a great conference. Yeah,
it was wonderful.
If you're in the area, look it up for next year.
Yes. Father Jose Rodriguez did a great job organizing everything.
Mm-hmm.
Over 700 men.
There's about 700 guys there, and there was another conference happening like 45 minutes away or so. That's what some Stephen Hoole, who we got to see. We got
Saw
to say,
Saint Stephen Hoole.
Stephen.
Can we?
He's still alive.
Yes. So can we maybe give a little bit of context of who Saint Stephen Hoole is? Because it's been a long time since.
Okay, so he's one of our patron members from one of the very beginning.
Right.
And so we were giving
in fact,
him a shout out.
He may not like this, but I'm going to do it anyway. And this is just for your humility, Saint Stephen. Like, even if you don't like it.
Yeah. Okay.
He was the one. He was one that gave us a good sized donation to get us like started.
Oh yes.
Get us going.
Yeah.
So like he was very generous.
That's true.
In supportive of the show.
That's correct.
But his wife didn't know that until now.
Well, she doesn't listen, so it's okay.
Probably.
And this was like
probably not
5 years, 6 years ago.
Yeah,
so
there's statute of limitations.
Right.
So it's fine.
But yeah, so he gave us this donation,
and we used to give people shout outs when they would join Patreon.
Right. And would cheers, we'd give them
toast.
A toast
to them. Yeah.
And you would continually talk about his death.
Like not on purpose. That wasn't something I was trying to do. It'd be like, may you have a good death or something. And it's like, I don't know why I keep
bringing up his death.
I keep talking about this guy being a martyr. But, Saint Stephen in the Bible was a martyr. And so there became an association of Stephen Hoole being associated as and called on our show as Saint Stephen because Saint Stephen had a glorious death. Just like I'm sure Stephen Hoole
will have
someday, whether it's in his bed at a ripe old age or what, I don't know, but it'll be good. It's going to be good. I'm sure of it.
Prophetic.
Stephen, here's to your death.
To your death. One of the longest traditions.
May it be glorious.
One of the longest traditions of the Catholic Man Show.
May our Lord and Savior find honor and glory in your final moments.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So, Jim's hesitant, but he went ahead and cheers. So this evening we're drinking a Scapa, either Scapa, not sure.
The smell of this whiskey is the weirdest smell.
It's very fruity.
That's
incredibly
not,
fruity.
Not what all. Let me smell yours.
Yeah, see. Yeah.
It's the same.
Okay. Yeah, it's the same whiskey. Yeah.
I was wondering this because I thought it was so weird. Like, what if there was like something in my glass, that was affecting the aroma?
So here's the official tasting notes. The nose: delicate, scented floral flavors with a hint of fresh pear, sweet and fruity pineapple notes with a citrus tang. The taste says it's smooth and sweet, ripe honeydew melon slices, burst of fruity pear, and lemon sherbet.
On the nose?
No, that's the taste.
Oh.
And the finish is long, refreshing, shimmering sweetness. Those are the official tasting notes.
All right. Juan, does it smell good to you? Like, I would not say that this whiskey smells good. I would say.
Oh, really?
I think it has a hint of stinky feet.
Okay.
I kid you not, and I've been going back and back. It's like, yep, there's something like a little bit rank on the nose. It doesn't taste at all that way. The taste,
it's good.
It's good.
It's not that.
Okay, I'm just saying.
But
that's just
yes.
One man's opinion.
So here's I know there's guys who listen to the show that know more about whiskey than we do, and I would like to know your thoughts, because this is from the islands of Orkney Islands, right? Which is the northern part, I believe, and it's right before the Islay whiskeys, right? So the Lafroigs, Ardbegs, Lagavulins, those type of whiskeys. This is supposed to be right before then. It's supposed to kind of have the salty, iodine-y almost taste, without the peat, a heavy smoke, because it's not quite there yet in the geographic area.
They could peat it and they could smoke it. Right?
Sure, they could, but just from the natural habitat.
They know what they're doing.
Yeah. Their microclimate that they have, whatever.
Okay.
But I'm not sure if it's technically like its own classification or not. Mm-hmm. I read this is a great book if you're getting into whiskey. It's from Jim Murray, who is the guy who does all the tastings and all the awards, and he's kind of like the whiskey Bible guy. And he has a book called The World Whiskey Guide. Now it's a little outdated now. There's new distilleries popping up everywhere.
Yeah.
But he mentions in that book that the Highland Park whiskeys are from the Orkney Islands.
Which I think is confusing because they have the word Highland in the name.
Right.
I think it's relatively reasonable to assume, these must be a Highland whiskey. But
now,
as it turns out, they're not.
I do know that the Orkney Islands has Viking heritage, right? So they were run by the Nordics, that area, for a long time, and it was a stop for them, a trading spot. So that's all I know, though. So we have come to the end.
That's just a point of interest.
Well, I know that Highland Park, they lean heavily on the Viking feel.
That's true. Yeah,
and then this has Norse, it says Old Norse glittering bright sky. So it has Nordic.
Yeah, they're doing the same thing.
Words on there. So there's a connection there.
Okay.
That's all I got, though.
All right. Nice. I think it's delicious.
It's a $90 bottle.
Okay.
$85 to $90.
All right.
40%, so it's not going to be harsh at all. The yummy scale, Jim?
It's a 4.
A 4 yummy.
4 on the yummy scale.
Okay.
No one is actually
Yeah.
sure like how high the yummy scale goes.
Juan, you have been gone for so long. Did you even know that there was like a numerical order to the yummy scale now?
No, I thought it was 4 times yummies, but now I see that it's different.
Yeah, there are some new things.
It has evolved.
On the yummy scale.
I have to catch up and do research.
Yes.
Yeah, there's books and manuals. There's a couple research articles that have been written.
Good thing I only have to listen to the first 8 minutes of an episode to find out what's happening with the
That
yummy
is good.
scale.
Mm-hmm.
That is a good point.
There you go. Also,
Fast research.
real quick, if you want to get our new hoodies and T-shirts, you can go to thecatholicmanshow.com, go to our store. We still have a few left. We opened it up to our patrons first. They had the first right of refusal, but it's a limited edition, right? So we we bought them physically, like ourselves, and we're reselling them. But we're not buying any more. Like this is a one-off.
That's all we got.
This is a one-off thing. So when they're done, they're done. But it's a really sweet shirt. It says "There's no paradise for cowards," which is from Don Juan of Austria in the Lepanto battle.
Battle of Lepanto, yeah.
Has a really sweet Lepanto ship on it.
And the sweatshirts themselves are
very
like awesome.
In fact, so
like the
Robert
material,
Martin, who we gave a shout out to in the last episode, or one of the last episodes.
Yeah,
Robert Martin,
because he helped fix my truck.
Right. He was wearing it. He bought one and he was wearing it, and he ended up printing off the story of the Battle of Lepanto, and had a bunch of copies that he had in his hoodie because he said he took it to work. It was like a casual day, I guess, or whatever. And he was at work, and people kept asking, like, well, what is this shirt about? And he said, well, here, read this. It's the Battle of Lepanto. It's a sweet story. And he like would just he said he was just passing out these little pamphlet or little sheets of paper on the Battle of Lepanto.
It's just history, and it's about Jesus.
And it's about Jesus
and Our Lady.
And you're welcome.
Right.
So anyway, you can go to thecatholicmanshow.com/store. I believe.
Great idea.
Yeah. When he told me that, I was like, that was great.
Brilliant.
That was awesome.
Well done, Robert.
Yeah. So here's the thing, Dave.
Are you going to preview a story that we're going to tell on the other side of the break? Is that what you're about to do?
We experienced something.
I knew it.
That possibly no one in the history of humankind,
in the course of all human events, I believe we took part in something that has never happened, and in all likelihood
will never happen again.
Will never happen again.
And you and I were a part of it.
Yeah, and it was my honor to be a part of it.
I was thrilled about it.
Yes.
And a little nervous.
Well, we're going to tell this story on the other side of the break.
Okay. Sounds good.
And I'm really glad that Juan's here for us to tell this story.
I'm scared. You haven't heard the story, Jim?
No, don't.
Jim, have you not heard the story?
Okay. This is going to be awesome.
Because I feel like
I can't believe I didn't tell you.
You have heard. You had to have heard the story. I was over at the Dvorak's house today for a little party for Emma, and Drew's brother was there and his mom, and I was gonna tell his mom, and she's like, "Oh, I already know. I already heard the story." What?
Spreading like wildfire.
Right? Yeah.
Nice.
Okay.
It's B.
It's B.
It's B.
To be.
It's for break.
Or not to be. Or bumper. Either one.
Or bumper.
Welcome back to the Catholic Man Show. I'm David Niles, here with Adam Minahan, Juan Posada, and Jimbo Baggins. So, as we were saying, we did something. Really, I don't want to take credit for it because I was just there.
Right.
I think really you have to give the credit where it belongs to Juan Posada.
Right.
As the genesis of what I think was, in fact, something truly new that never has ever happened and never will happen again. Not because it's not possible for it to ever happen again, but I just don't think any other person except for Juan is capable of actually...
And willing.
Capable and willing being a huge part of it. Because it's really not about if you're capable. It's about if it really comes down to, are you willing to do this?
Right.
And so it happened on Wednesday. Juan and I and our wives are part of a weekly Bible study. And at that Bible study, about a week ago, he told us things that we didn't expect to hear, which happens a lot from Juan. When you have a Juan Posada in your life, he tells you things that you don't expect.
Almost.
Fair enough.
Fair.
Almost always.
Almost on a regular basis.
Right.
On a regular basis.
Yeah.
So, Juan, if you don't know, is a prophet. You might not have known that about him, but he is.
Fun fact.
He's a Josephite prophet. He has prophetic dreams. And I'm actually not even kidding. Mostly about whether or not people are having babies or about if their baby is a boy or girl. So, and he's got an incredible track record.
Great track record, yeah.
I mean, this is not like a one-off thing. So last week, Monday night, Juan has a dream that his wife is pregnant. Now, given, I think, his own personal experience with his own track record, this for him is enough for him to be completely convinced. I had a dream that she's pregnant, therefore that woman is pregnant. Okay? There were zero doubts in the man's eyes.
Right. And he was St. Joseph's feast day.
It was
Yes.
St. Joseph's feast day.
Yes.
Adds to the story big time.
Right.
An important detail. So he's explaining this all to us, and in order to like solidify and have some empirical data to back up his faith, he decides to secretly collect a urine sample from his wife. This is a true story. Okay. And you're probably thinking, how are you going to do that?
Because that was my first question.
Oh, well.
That was my question. Juan?
You can't.
How did you take her urine?
Without her knowing that you were taking it. So he had another friend of ours call Joan and say, hey, I have a friend who's in like a doctoral program or something, and they're doing a study on antioxidants. And they really need people to help participate in the study, right? So would you be willing to do it? I need you to eat 2 cups of blueberries and then wait several hours and then send in a urine sample because we need to study it for the antioxidants.
For science.
For science. And if you don't know, Joan, she's big into antioxidants.
She's also really big into science.
Yeah. I mean,
maybe.
She's a sports science major. So.
She's also very charitable and willing to help.
Yeah. And because the antioxidants.
Right.
So. Anyway, she says yes. And so Juan is explaining to us on the Bible study, which is taking place on Tuesday night, that tomorrow she will be sending in the sample. And Lindsay, our friend, is going to do a pregnancy test. And that if it's positive, he wanted to throw a last-minute impromptu surprise you're pregnant party for Joan. This is the story. And as Juan already knew, everything went down, and she is pregnant. So before we keep going, congratulations, Juan.
Juan, congrats.
Gracias.
Baby number 5.
Yes.
And I have to say, when he told us this, I actually believed him immediately. Which kind of surprises me a little bit. And it's I feel like if anybody else had said I had a dream and I'm pretty sure my wife's pregnant, I'd be like, all right, yeah, that's cool, dude.
Yeah. Let me. Yeah.
But when Juan said it, I was like, no kidding. I believe you.
Yeah.
I just do. So anyway, the sample's collected. She's pregnant. We start throwing it together. She thinks that we're just coming over for just a regular Bible study party. Because we have those. Our Bible study group will get together just, for a party.
Right.
Every now and then. And so doesn't think anything of it. She's coming up. We were having it over at my house.
Yes. A ton of people are there.
Yeah. There was over 50 people there. They're walking up. to the like shop area we're having the party. The garage door opens. There's banners, and we all yell, "Surprise! You're pregnant!" And she just like stares at us with this, I think, mostly confused look for the first few seconds.
Very confused.
Just imagine someone comes up to you and says, "Hey, surprise! You're pregnant." Be like, "What?
Yeah.
What do you mean?"
I have several questions.
You're telling
right. We did make shout out to Mark and Becky Gabriel for making a surprise "You're pregnant" banner. Because
last minute.
Because you know what?
I don't know where
they don't buy. You can't buy it as a Party City. Party City does not have any surprise "You're pregnant" banners.
You're pregnant banners.
Yeah.
But we have one. In fact, it's still in my shop.
Yeah.
It's still there, and I kind of like it. So anyway, we had this great party. Joan was.
She did the laugh and cry. She did the laugh cry. Yeah.
But we had a great party. Congratulations to Juan. I just feel like the event needs to be documented somewhere so that the only
through the course of history.
That's right.
This has now been documented.
The only thing is that I really think that this puts a real risk of like calling in the divine inspiration of the Bible into account because it says there's nothing new under the sun. There's that one line, and
here we are.
Here we are. So it's a little bit awkward all of a sudden.
Yes. Not really sure. I was like,
we'll have to figure that one out later.
Juan called. He called me several times. I was in the middle of meetings. I could not answer it. I was with our good friend Deacon Garlic, because I work with him, and he was calling Deacon Garlic at the same time. We're in the same meeting, and so we're both like looking, and we're like kind of nervous, like, why is Juan calling us back to back, like this? And so he calls Amy, Deacon's wife, and tells her, and then Amy text messages Deacon, says, "It's okay, it's not an emergency. You just need to call him.
But you do need to drop what you're doing.
But you need to call him right now. But you do need to call him.
You probably should step out of the meeting."
And so Deacon and I call him. We're on the phone together, and he's telling us this. And of course, my first question is like, "Well, how did you collect the urine?" And
all of the questions. What?
Yeah. And then I asked him, I was like, "Juan, are you sure that she's going to be okay with this?"
Because honestly, I think there's a lot of women who might hear the story and say, look at their husbands and say, under no, never.
Yeah.
Do not ever, ever, ever.
Right.
Tell me, this is not how I want to find out that I'm pregnant. Right. I just want you to know that if you do this to me, you're going to be in trouble.
Right. Because I want this to be a joyful occasion. Uh-huh. I want this to be.
You got to know your audience. You got to know your wife.
Very.
You got to know your friend's wife.
Right.
Because I was sitting here like, should I be throwing this party?
Yeah. Well, I called Dave after.
My house?
I called Dave afterwards, and I'm like, are we complicit? Like, if things go down, if things go bad, are we like complicit in this? Like, how much moral responsibility are we taking here?
And what did I tell you?
It'll be fine.
That's exactly what
fine.
I said. I said, don't you know Joan? It'll be fine. She's like, she's totally easygoing. She's going to love it. It's going to be fine. And I said, Adam, we would never do this to Haley. But we're not doing it. We're doing it. Joan is going to love it. So don't worry.
I didn't remember this combo.
Yeah. Well, because
Deacon was worried. He's like, is that prudent? That's the word he used.
Yeah. He was
prudent.
Like, is this prudent, Juan? Like... A fair question. It was not. That's a fair question.
Yeah. There is a version of prudence called the Posada prudence, and it's a spicy
sub-virtue.
Yeah, it's a sub-virtue. It's a deep sub-virtue.
Very few people know about it.
It's very niche.
Yeah.
So anyway,
yeah.
I have my own sub-virtue.
Oh man.
Anyway, it was just the craziest thing. So I'm really, really, really glad to get to tell that story and share it with all of you.
Yes.
Once again, congratulations,
congrats, Juan.
It's toast to Joan, then.
Yeah. To Joan.
Yeah, to Joan and the baby.
To the Posada name.
Yeah.
May it live on forever, especially in heaven.
Amen.
Cheers.
Mm.
Okay. Well, that I don't know really how to transition from that.
Yeah.
That was a unique experience.
I felt like
for
there was
sure.
another story I had to tell, but I don't know it now.
And there's no way it's going to top that.
No, it's not going to top it.
No.
No story will top that story.
Any story from the conference or anything like that?
Oh, you know what? Just a quick one. I just mentioned this to you. I didn't even have time to talk to you about it, and I cannot remember this guy's name, and it's just eating me up inside. I can see his name badge, and I just cannot. But the letters on the name badge are still blurry in my memory. Maybe if I keep trying over a while. Anyway, guy came up to me at the conference, and a lot of great guys at the Wista conference, but. He said that he and his wife were getting ready to come into the church in Easter, and that he was coming up to say thank you because he said it was listening to our show that made he and his wife decide to join the church. So praise God.
Praise God. That is awesome.
Praise God for all the things he does, even with silly guys. So
don't throw a surprise you're pregnant party for your wife.
Yeah, I mean,
don't do that.
Yeah, because then we can't say we're the only ones.
Right.
That was an excellent rendering of the story.
I don't care if it's because it's prudent or not. I just want to. I just want to be
or
the only ones.
Or if you'll be divorced.
I want us to be the only ones who've ever done that.
Jim, have you heard that? No. Okay.
I can't believe that.
I cannot
we didn't tell you that story. Isn't that crazy?
No, yeah.
Only people to ever do that. I'm pretty sure. Juan Posada.
But I really couldn't have done it without, especially you and Mark.
No, you couldn't have done it without Lindsay.
Lindsay, yes, she was
she was.
You also couldn't have done it without Joan,
the key ringer.
Yes. Ooh, that is a good point.
Yeah, but so thank you.
I probably could have married somebody else. I guess. Done it then. Would have gone worse.
All right. Let's keep going. Let's move on. Welcome back to the Catholic Man Show. If you're just tuning in on Catholic Radio, one of the 20-plus Catholic radio stations that we are on, go check us out on the podcast. You're not gonna want to miss the story that we just told a few minutes ago before this break.
It might be the greatest story, second greatest story ever told.
Third
greatest story. Yeah, I keep forgetting.
Fulton Sheen has already got the second greatest story.
The second greatest story
ever told.
Yeah. Okay, but it's definitely the third greatest story, and definitely one of the funniest stories ever told.
So
anyway,
so tonight we're going to talk about something that's when you told me you want to discuss it, I thought, okay, this is a good topic. This is a good topic to talk about because there's a lot of people that are doing it, a lot of people doing it wrong. Poorly.
But there's a lot of it that needs to be done.
But there's a lot of it that isn't being done.
Yes.
That's exactly what I was about to say. Yeah. So we're going to talk about fraternal correction.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about like the what it is, how to do it, the benefits from it. Like do we have an obligation to do it? In what circumstances do we have the obligation to do it?
Yeah. Exactly.
And I don't know. I think that this has turned into very blurry lines.
Yeah.
Because of social media. Because you're able to just go on there and just spat something off.
Oh, it's easy for you to say something against somebody.
Right. Without thinking about it, without being in charity, without thinking about the consequences, without thinking about it. There's another human being on the other side, unless it's China and robots and Russia and all that kind of stuff.
Then it's actually not a human being.
Then it's not a human being. But assuming that it is, that you're actually interacting with another human being, and you say things that you wouldn't say to them face to face. Mike Tyson said something like social media has made people forget what it's like to be punched in the mouth, like saying something bad about somebody and getting punched in the mouth for it.
Right. Yeah.
Because you don't have to worry about that anymore on social media.
You don't know who I am. You don't know where I live.
Right. But then there's also there's the two extremes that are very prevalent, I think, in today's world. Right. You have the one where it is just a constant bashing of certain people, regardless of what they're doing, with this jaded lens of just looking at them in every worst possible way that could be have it taken, and just blasting them for it.
Yeah.
And then the other opposite,
like everybody's racist.
Yeah, or anything that comes out of one of the church hierarchy's mouth is completely heretical. And you just don't give them any benefit of the doubt. You don't look at it in a like how would I want that to be taken if it was me who said it? As somebody who has a microphone in front of them a lot and says a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean,
there are times
I've even said heretical things.
There are times that I've said things and been like, oh man, I wish I would have had that. Wish I could have taken that back.
Really,
because
heresy is just a matter of time. Okay, that's what it comes down to.
When
It's
you
like,
have a microphone.
Eventually, you'll slip in a little bit.
But then there's the opposite, the other way, the other extreme of not correcting them, correcting somebody's actions at all, and allowing them to continue in either a state of sin or just a path of destruction, a path of
whether out of false humility or cowardice or like a misunderstanding of prudence, whatever it is, the reasons are many.
Right. And I think that we live in one of those two extremes quite often. And because we live in those two extremes quite often, it's very hard to be in a emotional or like mental state to be able to receive fraternal correction well, and also to give fraternal correction well.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. So, start off with maybe a definition. Fraternal correction is just when you have to correct somebody, who is living in error or who is making a mistake. Fraternal correction is not like, hey, you're just doing something wrong. It's, hey, you're doing something immoral, and so you shouldn't do that. And maybe they don't know it's immoral. Maybe they do know, and they've kind of been blinded. It doesn't matter, but it's an act of charity, is what St. Thomas Aquinas says, that fraternal correction comes down to an act of charity. And he distinguishes between two types of fraternal correction, and he says that one is only for prelates. And so we'll just mention that one. We can get it out of the way because we're not going to be talking about that. And he says that there is a fraternal correction when it comes down to actually handing out disciplines, punishments. Okay, that is a good and valid form of fraternal correction, but that only prelates, priests, bishops, these kinds of people have the authority to delegate and to give that kind of fraternal correction. So we're not going to be talking about that today. We're going to be talking about the other kind that he calls just a simple act of charity, that you don't need that special office or authority in order to exercise.
Okay.
So how is fraternal correction an act of charity? St. Thomas Aquinas says that to do away with one's evil is the same as to procure his good. And to procure a person's good is an act of charity, whereby we wish to do our friend well. So, by helping rid evil out of our friend's life, that's the same as procuring the good. Therefore, it's an act of charity.
Because evil isn't a thing.
Correct. Right.
Right. Evil is a deprivation. And so by, to do away with one's evil, you're actually infusing the good.
Right. Yeah, it's the same thing. Right, yeah, so evil is, as you mentioned, evil is not like a positive thing that exists. It's the absence of a good that should exist. This is why decaf coffee is evil, because you have something which is natural, a good which is natural to a thing, namely caffeine. It's just natural to the coffee bean. And so by depriving the coffee of the caffeine, now there's a good which is natural to a thing that it should exist and it doesn't. Therefore, technically speaking, decaf coffee is literally evil, and maybe a necessary evil. Jim is over here. He always glares at me when I mention this, and this is the second time today he's heard me say this, because his doctor told him he has to drink decaf. So I said, all right, necessary evil, but evil nonetheless.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
your doctor's obviously not a philosopher. Okay. But so the church has, we call it a protocol for how to use fraternal correction. And I think just the really clear comes from the book of the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 18, 15 through 17. I think probably most people have heard this, but those verses says, but if thy brother, and I'm going to do the Dewey Rames, just because like when you quote the Bible,
okay,
it's the coolest.
Okay.
But if thy brother shall offend against thee, go and rebuke him between thee and him alone. If he shall hear thee, thou shalt gain thy brother.
No, you can't do.
First thou shalt take out the holy pin.
Yeah, you can't do Mighty Python while reading the
Then
Bible.
thou shalt count to 3.
You can't do Mighty Python.
5 is right out. Then thou shalt lobest thy holy hand grenade of Antioch toward thy foe, who being not in thy sight,
No, okay.
shall snuff it.
No.
Amen. Okay. He says, if he shall hear thee, thou shalt gain thy brother. And if he shall not hear thee, take with thee 1 or 2 more, that in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses every word may stand. And if he will not hear them, tell the church. And if he will not hear the church, let him be to thee as a heathen and a publican. So this is where we get the guidelines. What happens here? First, this person says, "Hey, like Adam has he's got his vice in his life, and especially if it's a public vice, it's makes the need for fraternal correction even higher. So what do? You go to him first by yourself and say, "Hey, Adam, this is a problem. You need to cut it out." And you say like, "I don't think so. No, it's not a problem." So what do? I go and get Juan and Jim, and then we confront Adam together. We have like a mini intervention. And if he won't even listen to us, then we go and we take it to the church, and we go get our priest or whatever. And if he won't even listen to them, then basically you're going to hell. I mean, like that's kind of what they mean here. Yeah. Unless you repent, of course. You could always repent.
The mercy of mercy in confession is available to all Catholics.
Yeah, and so I was listening the other day to Catholic radio. Great thing to be listening to. And I heard Father Wade Menezes. Wade Menezes, yeah. I really like him.
I do too. I think he's so great.
I think he's awesome. And he was talking about some of these 3 hallmarks of fraternal correction. I tried to look this up to see if this is an official thing, and I couldn't find anything. And maybe it is like still an official thing, and I just couldn't find it. Mm-hmm. But he says that they are fraternal correction should take place privately, charitably, and rarely. Okay, and the last one's kind of surprised me. It's like, oh, but if you think about it, and you're always harping on somebody's case, for every little thing that they're doing, fraternal correction is not. You're not the judge of somebody. You're not like their hall monitor. Dude,
I was safety patrol officer in elementary school, and that was a big deal.
That was pretty sweet.
The power that you had.
You wore the stripe thing.
The stripe across, yeah,
right.
and the helmet.
Yeah,
hard
and
hat.
You got to stand out, like be in the cars as they drove by.
Tell people what to do.
Like, say, "Ma'am, please stop."
Right.
Okay. All right. No, you're good. You can come. Yeah. But rarely, I do think that that's important. And what does that mean? To me, I think that means with prudence. Okay, and we're gonna let's talk about that more on the other side of the break. But
okay,
be prudent.
Always.
When you use your chips, you know what I mean.
So a question. Well, I guess I can wait. For the actual show.
Okay.
So does this private revelation thing happen a lot?
This is about
your
7th prophetic dream.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I have many crazy dreams. They're not all prophetic.
Yeah, I've heard some of the other ones, and they are not prophetic. Many of them.
Mucho.
In fact, is there an opposite of prophetic?
I don't know if you were like having these since you were a kid, or.
Well, my first one was when I was like 12.
That's actually a funny story.
My older brother was visiting from Colombia. He's like a half brother, but and he was in like 18, 19. But no, he's early 20s because he's much older than me. And he in the morning we're having breakfast and I was like, "Hey, I had a dream that your girlfriend was pregnant. How funny is that?" And everybody's kind of like giggling, and he looks at me, and he's very dark. He's much darker than me, and he's like pale. And he looks at my dad, and he's like, "Well, Dad, actually, that's why I came to Venezuela.
That's why I'm here to visit you.
To tell you that my girlfriend is pregnant."
As the older brother, I would be so mad at you.
I mean, he just your younger brother. He just has to dream. I mean, it's like,
but I would beat you up.
I'd beat you up. Definitely beat you up.
Yeah,
you would have. You would have needed to run.
Yeah,
or stay very close to mom.
Yeah,
the rest of the day.
All right, here we go.
Okay.
Welcome back to the Catholic Man Show. David Niles with Adam Minahan. We're talking about fraternal correction. Fraternal correction, very difficult. Takes a lot of courage. You know, when you actually, especially if it's with a friend of yours. Actually, I don't think it matters who it's with.
It's not easy to do.
It takes a lot of courage, and it takes a lot of charity. Like, it takes love, because I think that like the more you really like focus on the charity side of it, I think that you need less courage at that point, because it's like, hey, I'm just gonna throw myself out, and I'm doing this for you because I love you, and I know that you might embarrass me. That's okay. I'm willing to be embarrassed for you, you know, and I'm doing it because I love you. You know, whoever you are. Yeah.
So I had a question when you were talking about the rarely part before the last break. You were talking about, you know, that it should be rarely. You should use prudence in doing, you know, not be nagging. You're not nagging. You know, it's like this desire to correct them out of charity, right? So you know how like just war theory, one of the tenets of that is that you have at least a foreseeable outlook that you can win.
Yeah, it needs to be winnable.
Right. Do you think that principle could be applied here as well? Like that?
Absolutely.
Even if so. Okay, if you say, I mean, that I'm kind of surprised you said that, to be honest with you.
Well, actually, Aquinas says that very thing.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, so he asked the question. I don't remember exactly what the question is, but you know, here when he's talking about on fraternal correction, this is one of the questions. Question 33, actually, on fraternal correction.
Okay.
He actually says, what if you confronting him might make him worse? He says, don't do it. I have it here.
Okay. I didn't get a chance to read any of this.
Yeah, that's okay. So consequently, when it is deemed probable that the sinner will not take the warning and will become worse, such fraternal correction should be foregone, because the means should be regulated according to the requirements of the end. You know, the end, fraternal correction, its end, what is it ordered towards? It's ordered towards the, you know, conversion of heart. You know, and so if you don't think that the end will be achieved by these means, then you shouldn't do them. You know.
Okay.
So yes, I mean absolutely, because certainly, this is one of those things about, okay, you might know this person needs some fraternal correction, but one of the prudent things is, are you the one to do it? You know, just think about family members and like how hard it is to convert a family member, right?
Almost impossible.
Almost impossible. I mean, every family's different, but you know, a prophet has no honor, is not without honor except in his native place. So, you know, I think that's part of the prudence. That's part of the rarely. You know, that if we're going to step in and kind of cash in some of our chips with this, because that's what you're doing. I mean, fraternal correction is going to involve an emotional strain on the relationship between these two people. Now, it'll be a strain, hopefully, for a good reason, and will actually build the relationship in the end. But it is absolutely going to be a strain. And so, you know, are you the person that should be doing the fraternal correction? Maybe talk to somebody, a close relative about it. It's like you also don't want to go like gossiping about the guy with everybody. But if you do think, I think this other person, who's also, close, I think it would be better if they went and talked to him. Maybe go and talk to that person, and maybe they feel the same way already, and they've kind of been pondering, talking to this person anyway. So yes, if you think it's going to go poorly, then you shouldn't do it.
I think a good rule of thumb is to take it to prayer for a while. If it's not if it's not an immediate thing that you have to, like if it's not something that's time sensitive that I have to do right now, or it's not going to work, something's not going to work.
Right.
A lot of times when I've had to when I'm in the position where I'm not sure if I'm the one that should be fraternally correcting somebody, I take it to prayer, and I actually ask our Blessed Mother to put somebody else in that person's life that'll do it if it's not supposed to be me. And give them the courage to do it.
And this is the gray area with fraternal correction. And you realize, like, wow, this is actually a really, really, really big gray area. Am I the one who should be doing it? Like, how are they going to take it? What's the best way to do it? And what things do like really call for this kind of correction?
Does Aquinas talk about people who are of higher positions in life?
No, he doesn't really get into that. Other than the prelates, like obviously the bishops, and they can come in and enforce a different kind of fraternal correction. More of a justice. Like,
do you as a worker have the obligation to tell your boss?
Yes, he does talk about this. He asks the question, can the laity offer fraternal correction to a prelate? And the answer is yes. Not in the way that the prelate can, they can't inflict a punishment on him. But they can, out of charity, fraternally correct him just like anybody else.
Okay.
That's what he says.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question. And there have been examples.
I mean, that would take even more courage, right? Like if you're the coworker or the worker trying to correct your boss, or you're the lay person trying to fraternally correct a deacon or a priest, that takes one, even more courage, but two, I think even more prudence. I think the maturity level of the spiritual maturity level of that person who's going to take on that role.
Yeah.
Has to be very high.
Yeah, I agree. And so there is kind of like, it is kind of a slippery slope or treacherous waters, because it's like, on the one hand, am I the person? Do I have the maturity to do this?
Almost no one is the Catherine of Siena.
Right.
Because this is the example that everybody uses all the time. Like correcting the Pope or correcting, it's like, well, Catherine of Siena went up there and told the Pope to cut it out and get back to Rome, and like called him out, and he did it.
Also, like, she was having private revelations about it,
right? And she's also
when Mary comes to you and tells you to write a letter to the Pope, then you write a letter to the Pope,
right? I mean,
okay,
but people overlook that part, right? Yeah. And so, like, I think that if you're going to do that, judge lest you be judged, like this whole thing on judgment in the Bible, we should take seriously as well.
Yeah.
And I think that most of the time, the people who go and try to fraternally correct is an emotional reaction. It's I don't like what he's doing. It's not right. Thus, I'm going to tell him.
Well, and if you're going straight to Twitter and doing it publicly, okay, then you're just looking for you're being
hot
selfish.
Takes. Yeah,
you're really trying to glorify yourself.
It's a prideful thing.
Because once again, the first thing you need to do is go privately with them. If you don't know the person personally, then you're not the one to fraternally correct them. Okay, like.
Well, fraternal is
brother.
Yeah, well, brother. I mean, it's saying like it's one of the two words. Right. In order for it to actually to be, fraternally correct, it has to be a brother.
Right. You have to have a relationship with this person.
Right. Which I think is very important.
Right. I mean, it has to be like a minimum level of like, you know who I am. I know who you are.
Right.
Right. That's, the basics. So, but think about that. Yeah. Like, if I'm going to go offer fraternal correction to someone who's like kind of my superior, for me to put myself in that position, it's like, I do have the spiritual maturity to do it. Now all of a sudden it's like, am I being prideful? Do I need more humility? So I am not discouraging people from offering the fraternal correction, because if you don't do it, maybe someday at your judgment, what if that guy doesn't get to heaven?
Right.
What if this was the pivotal moment? You and I just given a talk in Worcester, and like one of the things we talked about were in our own lives, these pivotal moments where it's like, looking back, I realized that small decision, what seemed like a small decision, that little decision, it changed my life. I didn't realize it at the moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it was a course correction, some for good, some for bad, right? And so fraternal correction, I think, is very often one of those moments in people's lives. There's a high probability that this could be a pivotal moment for someone when they receive fraternal correction, when it's done well, that they have to kind of take a look at their life and whatever it is, and so it should be something that's serious, and
but Dave, so to that degree, you mentioned about it being an act of charity to do it, but to what degree does it become a sin of omission, not doing it?
Yeah. So this is one thing this is another question that Aquinas talks about. Basically, are we required to? And I was texting Carlo Broussard about this, just to kind of get some more clarity, and he helped me quite a bit, but we didn't get a chance to finish our conversation on this. Basically, so here's what Aquinas says. He says fraternal correction is directed to a brother's amendment, so that it is a matter of precept. That's what he says. So there is a precept, sort of there is a requirement to do it. Insofar as it is necessary for the end, for the amendment, but not so as we have to correct our erring brother at all places and at all times. Okay, so even Aquinas leaves a lot of gray area here. The bottom line is he does say sometimes you have a moral obligation to offer fraternal correction, and that if you fail to do so, basically it's a sin if you don't do it. He doesn't get so black and white
legalistic on it.
What is that situation, right? Because you just can't. You can't be black and white, because all of these individual situations are going to be very nuanced, right? And so you have to do your best. Adam, what you said, you have to take it to prayer. If you feel convicted, pray about it, and if you feel convicted, then you need to start asking in your prayer, not if, but how. Right.
Yeah. We're out of time on the Catholic Radio. Go check us out on the podcast, thecatholicmanshow.com, available where all podcasts are available. We're on the Lord's team,
the winning side.
So raise your glass.
And cheers to Jesus.
Yeah, so Steve Ray has a great story that he tells. He says he and his neighbor die at the exact same time.
I love this story.
This is a true story.
Yeah. He and his neighbor die at the same time.
Tornado.
Tornado, F5, wipes them out. They go up to St. Peter, is waiting for them at the pearly gates, and they call Steve Ray up. Steve Ray goes up for his judgment, and they say,
here you are. Here, your name is here in the book of life. Welcome.
Well done, good and faithful servant. Come in. And then he hears, as he's walking in, his neighbor's name called. And his
Juan Posada.
And they call the name, and they say, "I'm sorry, you do not live. You're not on the book of life. You are sentenced to you're damned to hell." And the guy says, "But wait, why is he in? He was my neighbor. Why is Steve Ray getting to go in to heaven?" And Steve Ray looks back at him, and his neighbor goes, "You mean to tell me you knew about all this and you didn't even tell me about it? Mm-hmm. I saw you every Sunday as
next door for 20 years,
right? And you didn't even tell me about this, And he starts cursing Steve Ray and as he goes down to the depths of hell.
I would too, personally.
and
so
that
I don't blame you, Juan.
but that's a very vivid story on and a real understanding of like, listen, this is not a little game here that we're talking about. These are souls that are on the line, and we desire that everybody go to heaven. And this is the call that we are as Christians, as disciples, is to go baptize them. And part of baptizing people is part of having people enter into the Christian life, is saying no to the life that they've been living.
Yeah.
Well, and Steve sometimes adds to that story. He says, when his neighbor's going down to hell, he says, "I'm sorry, I didn't want to have an awkward conversation with you."
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's all it takes. The awkward conversation, the fraternal correction that's it.
Right.
Yeah, that's totally true. So there are a couple other things that I think make the need for fraternal correction higher, and so that's if public scandal is involved. So if someone is doing something publicly, then the need for fraternal correction becomes twofold. Not only for their soul, but for the souls of everybody else.
Right. When scandal is involved, this is even a bigger ordeal.
Right. So, if Adam was doing something and like mentioned it on our show, here we are, it's like, and as if this is an okay thing to do. And if it wasn't, well, then I'd have a bigger need to offer correction. Right.
Who I greatly admire for this, who does this well, is our Bishop Condrela. He's really pastoral. He's a pastoral bishop who desires that everybody enter into the Catholic faith. But if they're not ready to enter into the Catholic faith, then they can't do certain things. Right? We even talked. We had him on the show one time talking about his article that he wrote on politicians and basically receiving the Eucharist. And he makes that stance very clear, is that it's not because it's not because I'm wanting to deprive you. It's because of something that is good, because I don't want to deprive you of something that is good. But it's a desire that I have, that I love you so much that I don't want you to take this good.
I want your greatest good, right?
I love you too much.
And you'd be committing a sin
to do to
receive communion worthily, right?
So anyway, I just that came to mind.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great example.
Again, you can go check that whole show on, if you go to thecatholicmanshow.com and just type in Condrela, Bishop Condrela, you'll be able to find that episode.
Right. I mean, and obviously, like, most of us don't know these politicians personally, who who claim to be Catholic yet support pro-choice, legislation. That's a great example of something that's giving public scandal, as if this is something that a good Catholic can do. They cannot. You cannot support legislation that promotes abortion, because abortion is intrinsically evil.
Right.
So if you are friends with one of these politicians, then you should maybe have a conversation with him. And once again, we follow that. Okay, that conversation doesn't go well, so you go and get some more of your friends and have that conversation with him again. That still doesn't go well. You bring your priest in. And if that doesn't go well, that's when you start to make a public, so I don't want to get political, but Cardinal Burke did this with the Holy Father, with the dubia. First he had a conversation with the Pope privately, and then when that didn't go well, he got some other of the cardinals. They went privately. That didn't go well, so then they put out that public letter. I only bring that up because that's an example of the process. That that's how
I think there's a real skill, a real art of rhetoric that one has to have to be able to fraternally correct well.
So that you're not you don't come across as threatening or like demeaning,
right? Hostile,
right? Like that. Oh, you're in trouble, or that you're bad,
or that you're better than them. Right. There's a lot of humility that, like, if you are going to come to somebody to fraternally correct them, your pride has to be. You better check your pride at the door. Right. Like there's nothing about this that is about like you or anything like that. I think that one way that I've done this. Here's a tactic that I've used that I have found to be useful.
Okay.
Is that if somebody's doing something wrong, and I feel like that for whatever reason that I need to have that conversation with them and for fraternal correction, I do it when I'm doing it privately. I set them down. We sit down and I say I really care about you, and I kind of tell them up front like how much I care about them, how much they mean to me.
Mm-hmm. And
then the next thing I say is I'll tell them like, here's what I think is happening. But I'm not sure I understand fully. And if it is happening this way, if I understand this correctly, we need to change it. But I want to make sure I understand you fully, understand your position.
Because maybe you don't.
Yeah, because another bad thing to do is think that you're fraternal correcting somebody, and then you just
realize you're just an idiot.
Right. All you're doing is you've listened to gossip, or you've listened to somebody else, or it's the story of the story of a story.
But it also makes that person admit right away, yes, I am doing that.
Right. And it puts it as I may be misunderstanding you.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so what it is it's not saying like I'm already condemning you. It's saying like you're giving the person the benefit of the doubt. You're saying I'm probably misunderstanding you, but here's how I think that this is going, and so I want to give you the opportunity to kind of clarify for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's good.
And then I shut up. Then I just be quiet and let them talk.
I think that there's another temptation in an effort to soften it a little bit, to not come as like you want to not be overbearing, which I get, right? You don't want to be overbearing. You want the person to hear what you have to say. So I think there's a temptation to also kind of downplay the badness of what they're doing.
Right.
It's like, give them excuses for it or whatever. Essentially weaken the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think that that's a temptation that has to be avoided, and that you have to bring the light of truth in all of its brightness and all of its glory charitably. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to come in and say like, no, this is what you're doing is bad, and it's wrong, and you need to and I want you to be better, and I know that you can be better, and so you have to avoid both of those pitfalls. I think we've said this now a couple times, but I think it's a skill.
Mm-hmm.
Conflict resolution is, people get paid a lot of money.
Oh yeah.
To do this kind of thing, in like corporate environments.
Yeah.
But if you just keep your mind focused on charity, and that once again you're doing this because you love them, you're not doing it because you want to be right.
Mm-hmm.
Even it's like,
again, this is the whole checking your pride at the door.
Right. I think it's better to take an attitude of, I know I'm wrong, but I'm doing this because I love you. And like, I might regret doing this, but I'd rather regret doing it out of love than fail to do it out of, humility or fear or, fill in the blank.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? The prudent thing is to err on the side of love than to err on the other side.
Right. Yeah, and the other extreme, like we've said, is the idea of not fraternally correcting them, right? So if you think that there's a chance that you can succeed, you see that there's a problem, and you don't go to them, and you let them continue in this sin or this spiral of destruction, then you will be. This is the sins of omission that you were just talking about, Juan. Like this you will be judged for that.
Yeah. And let's talk about what does it mean to succeed.
Okay, that is a good point.
Okay, because if you're saying I'm gonna go talk to him, I know this person's temperament, they are not gonna change their mind. Okay, that doesn't mean that it wasn't a success. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. Okay, some people you might have to talk to them about it more than once.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but unless you have that first conversation or the second one, unless you have that next conversation, it's never going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because some people are admittedly more stubborn about things. So success doesn't mean he changed his mind
Right then and there.
right then and there. Total conversion.
In fact, that rarely happens.
It probably isn't going to happen. I think most of the time these conversations go poorly.
Mm-hmm.
That person leaves and reflects. I think, even when it goes well, this is what might happen. It goes, and then it's only when they think on what you guys talked about that in the days to come, that's when they come around, away from right there and right then and there.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that, you have to be careful about what we're calling success. You don't want to let that stop you because, when you go and talk to them, they're probably not going to be like, oh, wow, Adam, I just didn't even see it that way. I'm so glad you talked to me.
So glad you enlightened me.
Right, exactly. Like, that's not how it's going to go down.
Right.
Okay?
But the reality is, though, friends don't let friends stay in sin.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, so whether it's your spouse, your best friends, your family members, like if you love that person, you don't allow you have to bring this up out of charity because you love them.
Yeah, I mean,
if I may add something, this is sometimes a word that is used pastorally. Sometimes gives me
what word?
Accompaniment.
Mm.
It's like we have to be in their journey.
Mm-hmm.
And
I basically hate that word.
Yeah, I hate me too. But
I know what it means, and I totally agree with the concept.
Yeah,
but I think it's people use it as a cop out to like, oh, don't ask people to be, don't ask people to change their life.
So, and I bring it because the word gives me sometimes what they call the jibbies, right? I think that's the word. Maybe not, but so when you're accompanying somebody, what it does gives you though is a fuller knowing of the context of the person's life and their circumstances.
Yeah.
So Aquinas is clear about what determines the morality of an act. So there's the intent, the object, and circumstances. Circumstances can add or subtract from the culpability of it, but they never change the essence of something, right?
Yeah.
They never change whether something was immoral or not. And I think that it's a place of privilege and responsibility with somebody that already knows the circumstances so well that they think they're giving a person the out. Like, well, I mean, what was he supposed to do? I'm cornered in all these circumstances, in all this context. But when you have the certainty of saying like, well, no, circumstances cannot change, right? You can do better.
Right, yeah, the goodness or badness of the act itself.
So, and I think that's the only value that I see to the accompanying part. Is like, hey, when you have enough context to make that decision, after that, then it's your call. Because it's hard to not have that relationship.
Oh, sure.
And make the call. But once you have enough context and enough circumstance, then that's your call.
Yeah, I mean, the accompaniment is the path to holiness. You're accompanying them to the path of holiness.
Mm-hmm. And it is fraternal correction. Accompaniment, I think, like typically the way it's used, it is fraternal correction.
Right.
That should be the way you're accompanying people. You bring them the truth, and then, sure, are they just gonna like become a saint on that day one? No. But you don't weaken the truth. You give them the truth the way it is and say, like, this is the standard. The standard doesn't change because God established it. Mm-hmm. Man didn't, right? And we're just simply...
we don't have the authority to change
it. We're just recognizing it, okay? And let me help you daily to come around, to get closer and closer.
Again, you have to make... you have to be moving towards the end. Mm-hmm. And the end is... charity is the end is the path to sanctity.
Right. Holiness. Yeah.
So you still have to be moving forward.
Yeah. Totally. So this is a challenging thing. I think it's a test of your manhood. Whether or not you're willing to take this up, whether or not are you. It's because it's scary. It's very, very, very scary when you're actually going to do it, and especially if you're one-on-one. but you got to do it. Otherwise, you just need to admit that, like, you just don't love this person. Your lack of courage is not allowing you to love them, and that you're failing them.
And there is no paradise for cowards.
There's no
There's
paradise.
no paradise for cowards. That's why it's on the sweatshirt, baby. That's all I got. You got anything else?
Jim, you have anything?
No. Okay.
Jim is a man of many words.